Justice Committee meeting of December 3rd, 2015. Motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting. Dennis is here.
Morning.
9:30, right?
I have an excuse 9 miles long.
The meeting has been opened, and Bill just asked for an approval of the minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Who's asset forfeiture? You're on.
Is this a good spot?
Yes.
Good morning, I'm Jason Carasone. I'm actually here for Kate Hogan. She's has to go down to Albany for this Children's Justice Task Force, so she asked me to fill in for her. What I did is passed around two resolutions that are being proposed. The first is that asset forfeiture compensation. If you look at that, essentially what's going on is there's a woman in the office, Nancy Ovett, and she's been handling for the entire year and really beyond all of our asset forfeiture work, which involves preparing all the documentation, administering all the accounts, doing all the accounting, and also it includes non-liquid assets such as vehicles. So if a vehicle is taken, even if doesn't become an asset forfeiture, she has to find out, is it owed, is there debt on it, what name is it in, and then it's something we can look at for asset forfeiture. So basically this is a resolution we're hoping to get approval to compensate her for that work, which is above and beyond basically her job duties. It would be $1,500 to be paid annually, and we're seeking that authorization.
Does anybody have any questions? Rach?
So this would be like a stipend. We see that with a couple other positions, I believe, a couple in your office, but across the board, is that what it would be in addition to her annual salary?
Yes, it would be a stipend to do this additional work. And as I said, she's done it throughout the entire 2015. I deal with it a lot because I do a lot of the drug cases, so I'm constantly, it's really, I don't know if it's an everyday job, but it's pretty close, because anytime an asset comes in, she has to look at it, reach out to law enforcement. If we are going to get an asset, that involves, I think, documents in 7 forms, then she has to determine how it gets administered. So a lot of times, if it's federal or state, it depends on the percentages, and there's breakouts. It's actually quite a bit of work that she's doing above and beyond, so I always see her at her desk, and I'm pushing that to her.
Maybe this is more of a question for Frank, but it wasn't included in the salary readjustments or anything, reclassifications going into next year? And I know, Paul, we spoke, sorry, I have 3 questions. We spoke last year about trying to eliminate stipends and include them into the salaries. Maybe it was the year before, I don't remember. But is that something we're still looking at?
Well, that's generally the goal of the county, but I guess I've come to accept the fact that I can't get them all in. This one is kind of unusual because of the fact that it's coming out of the asset forfeiture, so you really can't have a salary, because then you can't offset budgetary. So if she's handling asset forfeiture and they're seeking to compensate her for asset forfeiture out of asset forfeiture, I guess that all kind of makes sense to me. And you know, if Kate feels comfortable with it, which I gather she does, right, Jason?
Yes, she does.
Then you know, I'm not going to have a problem with it.
And that's because asset forfeiture funds are specifically used they have very strict guidelines, I'm assuming? And
They
that's
have
why
guidelines. Yes, they do have guidelines on, and it's a little different for federal and state. And I honestly don't know if this is coming out of which of those two, because some assets are taken federally for practical reasons. I'd say most are taken state. And so there's that fund. And I believe, and Paul, I think a long time ago you did a memo on the asset forfeiture and how that was handled. And this is one of the payouts that can be done, is to pay someone to do all the work to make this happen.
So there's no impact to the county budget?
No.
That's 5 questions. Are you done?
I'm sure I can find another.
Bill, did you have something? Bill, did you have something?
No.
I asked him all for Bill.
How did you come to 1,500?
You know, I didn't. The VA did. I don't know how she arrived at the figure, to be honest. I think she's My assumption is that she's looking at the workload and trying to come up with something that's fair.
Right.
My guess is that if you looked at the amount of time that's being spent, probably it's a good deal, would be the way I would phrase it, just
Right.
from my own personal experience, with what I've asked her to do.
I'm just thinking of a precedent, if down the road, is this gonna lack in a certain type of reasoning that, you know, we can't pay more, can't pay less, you know, or whatever, I don't know, just, if we knew the reason, then maybe it would be easier.
I don't know I don't know how the DA arrived at that particular figure, but I do know that you're looking at it's not a one-time, oh, I need you to do asset forfeiture today. It's kind of a constant workload that's just added on top of everything else. So, you know, I see her at lunch, sitting there trying to get documents done. Sometimes I'm coming to her in a panic, like, I'm going into court now, I need you to do this.
Right.
So that's sort of the way it goes.
Should we say it's negotiated or something, or that was negotiated between the two parties?
I'm sure if Kate was here, she'd give you an earful.
I wish I could give you that answer, I can't. I don't know how she arrived at that figure, that particular
Right.
number.
But this is an annual number that she's proposing
Yes.
not to change next year, just to,
Correct.
right,
Just an
so-
annual figure, it's not
Right.
at this time, and obviously if that was gonna change, it'd have to be in a request and an explanation.
Right.
Okay.
Is she getting this year?
Yes, this would be this year.
Okay.
And again, as Mr. Dusick indicated, it's asset forfeiture money that's been seized,
Right.
and it's a part of a payment for the work to run that whole program essentially.
Okay, anybody else?
And the second one, if you look on the front page, it says Earl Herring, arraignment obligation.
Hang on a second, Jason. Do we have a motion on the floor? Rachel, a second? Jim, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Go.
Thank you. So Earl Herring is that Court of Appeals case that's affected the Public Defender's Office and all attorneys across the state that handle criminal law. I think it's been discussed before, but I can go over that a little bit. Basically, as a way to address this requirement that we have attorneys at all these arraignments on the weekends appearing. One of the things that the DA is attempting to do is working with the DA's Association to see if there can be some state funding eventually to deal with it. Basically, what happened is the Court of Appeals made a decision, and when the Court of Appeals makes a decision in a criminal case, they don't also come up with budgetary plans to address it. They just say, here's the rule, follow it. So in this case, Marcy Flores is here, and her office, I believe, has received a grant for to assist them in trying to address this. We're hoping to get that as well, but it's not available, it doesn't exist right now. So what this is an on-call program. What we're proposing is that attorneys that already exist in the office, that are already members of the office, will cover the weekend arraignments. So every weekend we need to have people on call that will be going out morning, evening, and like last weekend, I guess it was 3 in the morning was one of the call-outs. So this is, I think the magic word is stipend that Rachel just asked about. It's an on-call stipend. It's $3.50 a day to cover Saturdays and Sundays. And we already have all the staff to cover it, and it would just be a matter of everyone going out and doing that. If you take a look at the last page, there's a breakout. This is only for 2015 at this point. And at the bottom, you'll see the contingent fund transfer request and how it breaks out. Because this has been, people have started doing this, I would say, in the last month. So it's been going on. I actually had to go out. We just needed coverage, and so I was the one that covered one of the weekends. I thought it worked pretty well. And the benefit, in my mind, is the way we're doing it is all the attorneys that handle all the cases up through the felony and the end of a case are the ones handling it right at the forefront. So I was in court. I saw Ms. Flores was there as well, and I saw this guy, felony DWI. I made some opinions, and I was able to handle things right there in court, and now I'm able to take that right into my work week on Monday, and same with the defense. So it's just, that's what we're seeking.
Okay. This is paid if you go out.
No, this is, you're on call, so.
You're on call.
So far, everyone that's done it has been out on both days, and you're on call. So on my day, I woke up, I guess, at 7, and I took a shower and got in a suit and tie, and then I got notified from Glens Falls. I went to Glens Falls, then I got done with that, and I got notified from Queensbury to be there in an hour, and I went to Queensbury. That was a Saturday. Then I went to Glens Falls Saturday night, and then I was back on Sunday. I think I did Glens Falls, Queensbury, mine was a few weeks ago. So the idea is, if you have a big workload, that's all you get. If you get lucky and it's lighter for some reason on a weekend, unfortunately, weekend arraignments,
Yeah.
weekends are when we get a lot of crime, so we get a lot of arraignments.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Rachel?
Thank you. So this covers till the end of the year, Jason?
This is only till the end of the year, yes.
So this is about 1 month?
I think it's a couple of months. Let me take a look. If the time's been,
So is it retroactive then? Is that what you're saying?
yes, there's been a few, weekends that have already been covered.
Okay.
So even if it's 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever it might be, I guess my question is to Frank, moving into next year with the amount that's allocated for this, based on these numbers and what we're seeing for the 2 months, say, we're good with next year with the amount of money that's needed to cover it?
No.
Not in the budget?
No, there's, Kate requested, well, it's a story. Kate requested $39,000. Wanted to pay him $375 per day. I didn't agree with that. I put together a schedule that paid each day their daily rate. Okay, and it come out to $29,000, so I budgeted 29. That, I think Tuesday, we had a conference call and, had done our negotiations, and we ended up at $350. 25 from the county, 25 from the state.
And I think that's related to 2016. Right, so that's not what's being,
I understand that.
So we have $29,000.
So we'll change that in the beginning of next year, is what you're saying? For whenever.
Right.
But the rate that this is based on, is that changed? What rate? Is it the one going into next year? Is it what was requested, the daily?
Yeah, that's what we negotiated together.
you're talking about 2016 now, or?
No, I'm
this
talking
one?
about this here.
This is the 350, and it's,
Okay.
and that's already what's being sought.
And that's then what we'll end up being next year
And
with.
I think what's being discussed for next year, and obviously has to go through all the procedures, is that same number, but part of it would be funded by, out of the DA's, maybe asset forfeiture funds, I'm not sure, and the rest would be, so it'd be a little lower figure starting next year.
And none of this is funded right here out of asset forfeiture?
No.
And is it just because there isn't the funding for the rest of the year to take any of this out of asset
I
forfeiture?
don't think you can, entirely fund, something like this out of, I don't think it would be something that would be permitted out of asset forfeiture. So that's why I don't think it can be.
But it will be next year.
Part of it, I think it's 25.
Okay.
And it may be the difference between fully funding and partially
Is
funding.
allowable.
I'm not sure.
Anybody else? Fred?
Is this just for, weekends, or is it also holidays?
Right now, there's no payment plan for holidays. We are covering them, and we don't have that figured out. So I know there've been a lot of discussions, and I think that's still something that's being developed. We handle it, I mean, in the past, what would happen is,
Get comp time or?
not really, no, not really, but it wasn't the same system that we have now. Sometimes you would receive a phone call and you could handle everything over the phone. Pearl Herring has created a situation where people have to be in court appearing, and it's obviously a whole different animal than what it was in the past. And so, it's basically, they call it a critical stage, the arraignment stage. In the past, a lot of times arraignments would just take place. Sometimes the DA's office wouldn't know, there'd be no defense attorney, they'd arraign them, and then it would get dealt with probably on Monday or the next court date. Now they say that's not permissible. You have to have an attorney present at all arraignments. And this is an attempt to start to address the all arraignment Pearl Herring has come up with.
Yep, Jason, my only other question is that moving forward, you mentioned that right now there's there's a grant available for Marcy's office, but not for the DA's office.
Correct.
So is that something that, obviously, I'm sure Kate's seeking that grant, but then we would amend based on?
Right, when I say
on-
seeking a grant, there is no grant. So there,
Okay.
with the DA's Association is a group of all the DAs from all the counties in the state. They're going to the state and saying, hey,
Okay,
there should be a grant, there should be funding here to address this. This, as I said, this case comes out, and it says, okay, now you just, by the way, everyone needs to be at all these arraignments. But it doesn't consider the budgetary costs, it doesn't look into any of that. And so, I think our position is, look, out of fairness, there should be funding to cover this. You've created a new situation. I really believe that when you look at cases like this, they probably are looking at a city, a big city. In a big city, it's not the same problem. You have big offices where there's probably 24/7 coverage. You come here, and we just don't have that in Warren County. We have a broad county, in a lot of counties, Washington, it doesn't matter. It's a big area, courts are spread out, we don't have district courts, in New York, so.
but why does the public defender's office get a grant and not the DA's office?
I can address that. I have no voice, so I'm sorry. We have a grant from Office of Indigent Legal Services, it's the umbrella agency for the state, and so that's where our grant comes from. Jason's office would never get a grant
right.
from that because it's a different animal. And I worked downstate before I moved up here, and we had district court, so we had judges sitting from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night. So you had attorneys working, and the Legal Aid Society, St. Louis Defender's Office, working. So you had everyone, you had coverage all the time. And on the overnight, they'd hold until 8 in the morning. So we didn't have that issue down there. Up here, you don't have any.
So they would just schedule it, and then they would just schedule the attorneys in the office to cover
Yeah,
cover
we
that day,
had
maybe
night
take a
court.
Monday off and work a Sunday.
Right.
You just had
Yeah.
staff that covered, I mean, there was just staff covering all that time.
Because you were assigned night court or day court, you worked weekends, day and night, and it was just part of your rotation.
Are you guys lobbying for district courts? I know this is so far off what we're talking about, but, before you tell me.
I would love it, district court again, up here.
Yeah.
I just don't see that as viable
No.
for various reasons.
The town residents would hate it,
Yeah.
want their own
So
court.
much money, this is so efficient.
Oh, no, thank you.
That's the slowest I've ever heard you talk.
Handicap. Okay, are we set? Has somebody made a motion?
I will.
Right, Rachel? Second? Jimmy? Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason.
Supposed to hit the gavel when there's a resolution.
They won't come out, I hit it all the time.
It makes it look more official, that's all. It'd look better if you had a robe on too.
That's just like.
Are you
for
up,
myself,
Butch?
yeah. Give him a crown on his head too.
And one of those curly things, you know.
Little wig.
Wig.
Well, he's already got the long hair.
Good morning. I have
Morning.
quite a few things on the agenda, and I think the easiest thing for me to do is to describe the first three, because they're all intertwined with personnel moves that need to be made in our department. And then we can take one at each time and vote if that's all right with the chairman.
That's fine.
What I'm
Sounds good.
having in 2016 is three individuals retiring. Mark Sager, who's a probation supervisor, is retiring January 19th. Ann Greco and Natasha Corcoran, two senior probation officers, are retiring March 31st of 2016. So I'm going to have a total of three retirees. What I would like to do and what I plan to do is to promote from within with regards to those positions. So with the probation supervisor, I'll promote somebody from my staff to that position, and then with the two senior probation officers, I will promote probation officers to those positions. Now that leaves a total of three openings, and what I would like to do is to fill those positions with probation officer trainees, new people coming into the department. So it's, we're a department that has had people that have worked in our department for 30, 25 years, and it's coming time where people are of the age to retire. So, with that said, that's the holistic part of the three resolutions with regards to personnel. It's just the way we're set up, and I believe that the way we are set up in our department works very well, and I would like to continue that. So regarding the first resolution, as I indicated, Mark Sager will be retiring January 19th, 2016, and I would like to fill that position of probation supervisor. We have 2 supervisors in our department. We have a professional staff of 14. They each supervise 7 individuals, and there's a lot of work that we do, and to do that, there's no doubt that we need 2 supervisors.
Okay,
I'll
Right.
move all three because they're all related.
okay.
The only thing, sorry.
Go-
The
go-
only thing I need to address is the probation supervisor is a non-union position, so there's no salary pursuant to the salary schedule. On the resolution, I proposed a salary of $60,000, and the reason I came to that would be Mark Sager's salary for 2016 would be $65,155, and my other supervisor, Adam Stevenson, his salary for 2016 would be $62,550. So I believe $60,000 is fair when we look at what we pay our senior probation officers, which make about $56,000. So if the supervisor's paid $4,000 or $5,000 more, I think that compensates the responsibilities that go with that position. So, not having a salary outlined in the salary schedule, I thought I would put my 2 cents with regard to how I came up with that.
So is that part of your resolution?
It's a part of the notice to fill the intent of position, so yes, it would.
You good with that, Fred?
Yes.
Do I have a second to that? Billy? Any discussion, Rachel?
Oh, I'm just trying to write down the numbers. Will you just tell me one more time, please? So it's 60,000 will be the I just don't see the numbers, so.
I didn't put them on the agenda, I apologize for that.
Okay, so the,
Yes, Mark Sagers, who's the current supervisor, is leaving, would make a little over 65. And Adam, who's been our supervisor for about 3 years, makes a little over 62.
okay, so you wanna
So-
bump him to 65?
Right, so I believe that 60 would be a fair, salary for that position.
It's 60 for the vacant position.
Right.
Rachel?
I'm good.
Too early in the
I'll-
morning?
Read the resolution when it comes out.
All right.
We will get it, right? Do we get those resolutions, or those are the notice to fill and we don't get them?
No, you can. Actually, it'll be in front of the personnel again.
We'll go for personnel.
Well, the notice to fill is approved by this committee and you're done.
Yeah, that
The
makes
salary, though, there will be a resolution that amends the salary schedule and changes it. You'll see a to and from. So
Okay.
that'll be in that salary schedule. I think that comes out of the clerk's office, Amanda, normally?
Let's go to personnel.
It goes, that piece goes to personnel, right.
Yep, and the notice of intent to fill will be at the end of the.
They just
personnel.
report on the personnel, though, right? No action.
Okay.
So, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion, Jim?
Oh, no, I thought you were looking
Oh.
for a second.
Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you. The next resolution is the contract with the Warren Hamilton County, or Warren, the Community Action Center, Warren Hamilton County's ACO, EO, to the alternative sentencing program. They've been doing our alternative sentencing program, probably for the last 6-7 years. The bid, or the RFP, expired this year, and we sent another one out. They were the only ones that responded, and they came in with a figure to do the program for $61,000. They have been doing it for $51 for the past 3 or 4 years. We met at budget time, and we believed if we could get something in that neighborhood, that would be acceptable to do the community service, and their RFP was in the neighborhood. And I advised the budget officer, Joanne and Paul, of that, and it was incorporated into this coming year's budget. So, what I would like to do is to propose a resolution to contract with Warren Hamilton to do community service. And the way the RFP is set up is not only would it be for next year, but if it's agreeable to all parts, if it's agreeable to the county and Warren Hamilton, or the Community Action Center, there's 4 additional years at the same price of $61,000.
Agree. Okay. I'll make that motion, Fred. Second. Rachel, any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
The next resolution I have is to extend our memorandum of understanding with the Department of Social Services. They give us $60,000 through preventative funding to fund one of our probation officers who works in the Glens Falls City School District. Preventative funding, we're eligible to do that type of work, and the reimbursement to the county, I believe, is like 62%, where reimbursement for probation is like 12%. That's a pretty good bang for the buck. So we've been doing that probably for 7, 8 years, and it's an annual agreement, and that revenue has been included in the budget also.
Well, move it, Fred. Second, Jimmy? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
And the last one I have is a resolution for myself to attend a American Probation and Parole Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. The costs are being paid by the New York State Council of Probation Administrators, because I'm a regional rep to APA, and there is no cost to the county with respect to that.
Billy? Second, Rachel? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
That's all I have, but however, I'd like to thank Chairman Kenny and Chairman Monroe, who will be retiring, for serving on the committee. And I know Bill's been on the committee since I've been director, and that's 16 years. So Bill, thank you, and Fred, you've been on it for a great number of years. You two have been great, you've been very supportive, and certainly appreciate your efforts, and thank you very much.
You'll probably see them in your program once they
Yeah.
retire.
We'll be waiting for that.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Brown. Anybody else? Marcy? Speak up.
I'll try. I have several things. The first one is to move money from our oils grant, the Office of Indigent Legal Services grant. To move the money to pay for furniture, and to pay.
Why don't you stay here, that way you don't have to.
Thank you. So that I could move the furniture, so we can purchase the furniture for the 6th Assistant Public Defender. Money's all coming from the Office of Indigent Legal Services grant, so there is no expense to the county. And we have money also in the grant, and we want to pay for memberships and dues. I want our attorneys to be a member of the New York State Bar Association. It means when we do CLEs through the Bar Association, it'll be cheaper. Again, this is all covered through the Office of Indigent Legal Services, so there's no expense to the county, and we have all the funds, so we're just moving it into the right code.
May I ask a question?
You wanna move it first?
Yes.
Okay. Second, Jimmy? Go ahead.
There's not match, like, any type of a match, so are all their grants, they're 100% funded?
Our grants from Office of Indigent Legal
Awesome.
Services are 100% funded, which makes my life so much easier.
Yeah.
And I feel that you're much more comfortable agreeing to these things because the county's not paying any money. We're working really hard and being very creative on this.
Awesome, good job.
Can I just add something about the grant? With the grant, we have to go into areas that we don't normally, the county would never fund. So joining the Bar Association is something $60 for each attorney. And so the attorneys don't have the money to do that. It's a lot of money. So it really makes a difference having the grants to be able to do it. So I've been really fortunate in trying to be creative, and the grants will also pay for our continuing education, so the classes are cheaper. We joined it, and they're happy. And what has been happening is they're extending our grants. Grants are for 3 years, but they extend it. And I'll talk about it a little bit in the next one. But if there's money left over, we can move it into other areas, because when the herring case came up, that came out of the blue. No one was expecting that decision. And so I had extra money in the grant. So I'm moving other money around to be creative. And when I talking with Jason's piece with the attorneys at arraignment, I knew there was I knew I was going to hire because we wanted a 6th assistant, and because of the caseload, when we talked about that before we threw the volume, and we have to stay within standards so we don't have a problem with the state. And so what we did is, when I hired, I knew there would be some issues, so I adjusted the hours of when they're working and what days they're working to cover it. Because they have people working with standard, and it's hard to hire people just to cover arraignments at night. One is go out at 3 in the morning. I mean, the reality of it, no one wants that job. So the stipend pieces and the grant funding pieces, because yes, you're going out, it's inconvenient, 3 in the morning, there's a snowstorm, but at least you're getting paid for it, as opposed to the DA's office does it. that's the piece on number one. And a little extra information, so thank you.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Are you all set?
Oh, I thought we already did that.
Everybody ready?
Well, I can't wait to go to Intercounty with you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I would, ask the peanut gallery, if they could keep it down, it would help. I can hardly hear her up here, I'm sure we're gonna have difficulty recording this. Not a problem.
Is next one is to extend a contract. We had granted extended for 3 years. We didn't use it all. So they allowed me to extend it for 6 months, by November 30th. I still haven't used all the funds, and my next piece will be talking about what I'm gonna do with the funds. But they said I could extend it if you all agree to allow me to extend it. So I assume you would like me to use all the state funds up.
Motion? Fred, Jim?
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Just a question, I mean, these funds are what used to be, we used to get a lump sum of like 200,000, and now we have to just do it piecemeal, we're gonna do this extra stuff or that extra thing. Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Chairman, if I could comment on that,
Yeah.
because this was a source of frustration for the county.
Yeah.
You're correct,
Yeah.
Supervisor, we used to get, a lump sum, and it simply
Applied
got
to us.
applied towards our cost. Now, what the state does is they say, we'll give you money, but it has to be for something other than what you're already budgeting for. So, it really doesn't, in the end, we got hurt by this, because we used to have some of our costs covered that we were already paying. Now, they're requiring us to spend it on other things. Now, when I say we got hurt on it, some of the things we probably would have had to do, so in fairness, I guess there is some money that's legitimately being spent, but Warren County was ahead of the curve in terms of its legal aid and its public defense office, and when the state redid everything, I think their intent was to try to gear money towards those operations that weren't doing as much, but they just did it with a broad brush, and they said, okay, you're not gonna get this money anymore, and now we're gonna give it to you to only if you do extra things. Marcy's doing a good job, though, I gotta compliment her, 'cause she's finding things that are legitimate, like these bar memberships and things that are enhancing her office, the arraignments she used it for, she's being very clever in terms of how she uses the money, so, you know, I have to compliment you.
Okay.
So can I just tell you why I wanna use the money and how I wanna use it for? That's what the backup paperwork is. I assume you wanna know that. I have the sixth assistant works noon to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. She also works all day on Sunday, which is 8 in the morning to 8 p.m. at night. So I don't have anyone working Friday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. to cover arraignments. So the graph, at the top talks about 3 hours for working Friday night to cover arraignments, and then breaks it down how much it costs for the year. So this will be for next year. We're not doing it for this year. It's not gonna work that way. Then, in terms of Saturday and Sunday, I have been working 12 hours. It's really inappropriate to work 12 hours. It should be at 8 hours, 8 in the morning to 4 p.m. So the stipend is for Saturday and Sunday in the afternoon for 4 hours from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. That way, the person who's working, if somebody else wants to work, instead of working 12 hours, but they're actually working. I have my attorneys going into the jail, interviewing people who arraigned over the weekend, and they're actually physically working in the office versus on call. Because my feeling is they're getting paid, they have to work. And so that's the purpose of this stipend money here, and the $35,000 is what we have left over in the grant from before, and that's why we're saying to use these funds. And what I attached next was, the grant was extended till November 30th. So I gave you the documentation about that, and then the resolution, that you wanted to see with it. And then the last page is how much money was in the grant that we knew originally what we were starting with. I just wanted to explain the documentation of this. I thought it would be easier.
Good. Anybody have any questions? Fred?
Well, what about arraignments that are, this is just, it looks to me like it's just certain hours, 4 hours Saturday, 4 hours Sunday. What about arraignments that happen in the middle of the night?
The answer is we're on call and we'll do our best effort to get there.
Okay.
Try to do it. All the judges have my number.
Yeah,
It's okay.
so you go out in the middle of the night.
If I have to, I do it. We do whatever we have to do. And before this was in effect, I was still going out, not being paid, doing it because it had to get done.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta do what we have to do. This is the representation of the town, trying to comply with the statutes and bring the cases.
All set? Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, the last thing I have is a request to fill. Mr. Tyree, has retired from counseling, and I would like to, family court and health. Because the salary is exactly what the salary was, so that is all budgeted for next year. So it's just a request to fill. I'll try to do it within house if I can, and if not, I would like to also receive the people out there. I think it's important to see, what else, who else would be interested. But the salary is what we already in our budget, so there's no change in budget whatsoever. Sorry.
Bill, I'll move that. Second, Jim, any questions? Rachel?
Dennis, don't sound so excited. Many times when we're backfilling, filling a position, we get, and I don't wanna say grief, but, we get a lot of comments about filling a position exactly what the position was with the vacancy, and sometimes there's very good justification for that, and I recognize that, I'm assuming you have that.
This position is an important position for me. The person who's in charge of case support, because I'm in charge of all the criminal courts, it's hard to do everything also, So, in terms of that person's in charge, and the requirements for that person's hiring is different than my assistants 2 through 6. The is different. So, in terms of filling it, when I feel I have the appropriate candidate, at this point, we are just covering and doing what we have to do, because I don't have.
Well, I just think it's important to ask you that question if we're gonna ask everyone else, and,
I appreciate all the questions, I have no problem with answering anything.
I'm sure Dennis feels the same way.
Anything else?
Hmm.
Being nothing, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. You're welcome, Marcy. Merci. Anything else? Frank?
Back to the decision there out for the 5 counties, the Pearl area decision.
Right.
There's proposed legislation in the assembly by Hay, I believe it's Assembly Person Hay, for the states to match what they have to do for these 5 counties, where they have to pick up the full cost. And it's to do that for the rest of the counties over a 4-year period. Intercounty passed a resolution supporting that last month. And I think that's something that Warren County should also,
Mhm.
just throw a resolution there.
We have a legislative committee meeting coming up, so we'll talk about it there.
Because that could pay the whole indigent legal expense.
Would it be helpful if we did something, or not?
Pass a resolution here and refer it to legislative.
Right.
Second to that, Rachel? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Marcy?
Can I just add something? Tomorrow, I'm going to a Defenders Association, the statewide meeting. I'm sure there's going to be discussions about that. I can report back to the committee
That'd be
as to
great.
what's going on. I knew about the legislation, but it hasn't gotten very far yet. And we talked about it, I go to all the statewide meetings. The last one was in August, I think it was. So they brought it up there, and Ms. Fahey spoke at that meeting also. But in terms of things, we're just starting at that point. So I will keep everybody informed on it. Okay? Thank you.
Great.
Good.
Merci. Anything else? Anybody else? Motion to adjourn? Right? All
Yeah, I'm moving to adjourn.
moving to adjourn. We're adjourned.
There you go.
Right.
Now that's official.
What?
All in the show. Funny watching British courts where they have the